Bran Stark might be the king at the end of the series, but when he is the king at the end of the series, is he actually going to be the king at the end of the series, or is it actually going to be Bloodraven, the three-eyed crow over here? Is that who's actually going to be the king and like puppet mastering him by like working into his body and like controlling him in like a scary puppet master? I don't know. But let's talk about it. If Bloodraven were to be puppet mastering Bran, how would he do it? Why would he be doing it? And do I think he would do it? Well, let's discuss those three things. Also, before I get into it, don't forget that this is a thing. If you like me, go make this more of a thing, okay? Okay, let's keep going. The how is pretty straightforward. Because Brynden Rivers is a skin changer, not only that a green seer, so he's a powerful skin changer, he should have the ability to skin change into a variety of living things, including, not limited to, but human, possibly. Now, we see several examples of that throughout the series, because there's the obvious one. We see Bran skin changing into Hodor, which is a bad thing. Let's make that very clear. That is a really, really bad thing and like a violation of like the natural order, whatever. Because the other example we get of a skin changer trying to skin change into a human is a character named Varamir Sixskins, who is a wildling. He serves as the prologue chapter for A Dance with Dragons, where we learn like a lot of like the lore and the background of skin changers, basically. And the biggest taboo that you learn right off the bat is that you do not skin change into humans. That is like the cardinal rule. Varamir learns that from Hagen. Hagen is the basically like his mentor that he gets dumped with after he unalives a younger brother with a dog. It's a whole thing. Hagen is the one who's like teaching him the skin changing ways and like the culture around it, and that is like the big rule. You do not do that. You do not like violate another human being in that way, because I don't know, like the consciousness doesn't like it, obviously. Now we can argue about like the ethics of it with an animal as well, but that's not what this video is about. So like, think about it. It is something to ponder, sure. But the whole Varamir, introducing us to that concept then really gets, hit on the head when at the end of his chapter, as he, spoiler alert, is dying, he tries to take his second life, which is like what you do when like a skin changer is dying. You can hop into one of like the animals you skin change into, and then like when your human body dies, you can like live out your second life in the animal. And so he tries to do that into another human being, and it doesn't go well. The lady in question like loses her mind. I think her name is Thistle. She's another wildling who has like been trying to help him, and it's really fucked up. But he, tries to do it into her, and she like loses it. She starts clawing her eyes out, and then she like, I think like bites her tongue. It's a whole thing. But eventually he like fails. He isn't able to. She like is able to shove him out of like her consciousness, and then he has to jump into one of his wolves. Now, that's a big reaction, and we see another example of that, but with a far lesser reaction with Bran and Hodor. So Bran is skin changing into Hodor pretty often, but I think the reason that it's a little easier for him is Hodor seems to be at least like developmentally stunted in some way. It's not very clear, and but like that isn't to say that Hodor isn't aware of what's happening. He's very much aware, and Bran can feel like how much he hates it, how much it freaks him out. But Bran, again, is a pretty strong skin changer, so Hodor is just kind of going with it, though unwillingly. Now, because we've set up this concept that like you can skin change into a human, but you really shouldn't, well, we now have to think about like one of the OG schemers in the series, and that is Bloodraven. Bloodraven, who was Hand of the King and really like the puppet master for multiple generations of Targaryen kings. Well, he has some big endgame in mind. Like, you have to assume that. Like, why is he going through all this trouble? But he's Bloodraven, so like there's a reason. Naturally, this brings us to the why. The why would he do this? Well, there could be a couple reasons, and they, span the spectrum from like actual like I am trying to save the realm, all to like I want to be the ruling king finally in my own right, which I couldn't before because I was a bastard. Ooh, fist in the air. Because say whatever you will about Bloodraven, but to my eyes, his biggest concern has always been like the proper management of the country. He has been trying to basically like steer it how he sees fit, and did so for multiple generations as the Hand of the King to Aerys the First, and then Maekar, not Daeron the Second. Sorry, I was getting confused. And the thing is like, while he was doing it, he did a good job, but again, it was very much a like an ends justify the means kind of situation, because his goal seems to have been the betterment of the country, but there isn't really much that he wouldn't do to achieve that, as we learned in what became his undoing when he ordered the death of Aenys Blackfyre. Now, if you didn't know, Aenys Blackfyre was one of the last Blackfyres who were a cadet branch of House Targaryen, who were pretenders to the throne. They had been legitimized once, and so they basically kept trying to claim the throne in these big Blackfyre rebellions that kept getting squashed, and Bloodraven had to deal with basically a majority of them, because he was from the generation where the first Blackfyre, Daemon Blackfyre, originated from, because they were all bastard children of Aegon IV. It was a whole deal. But anyway, so after the death of Maekar, they had to hold basically like a great council to decide who the next king would be, because the succession was like a little unclear, and it was Bloodraven who was the one, as hand of the king, who said, no, we're doing the great council, we're figuring it out this way because, I'm in charge. And because they're hearing, all these different people's claims, to, put themselves up as like a potential, future king, one of the people who did that was Aenys Blackfyre, at the time, like next in the Blackfyre line, and he asked like, hey, can I have safe passage so that I can participate in this, because, I do have a claim. And Bloodraven was like, yeah, sure, of course you can. Come over here. You can come over here. We won't hurt you. Spoiler alert, he hurts him. So the second he gets there, Aenys Blackfyre is arrested, and then I think they like literally like it wallop, it goes off. Yeah, so they do that, and that's bad, because this is kinslay. We don't kinslay. And Bloodraven has now shown that like not only will he like violate guest right, which is its own horrific like thing in the culture, but also he's willing to kinslay. Like, so it's a double whammy. So yes, Brynden Rivers is willing to do like taboo things for what he considers to be the greater good. So we have the how, we have the why. Will he? I think that there is a definite chance that he tries. And I think that this will probably be a case of Brynden Rivers has a plan that might have good intentions, but probably wouldn't turn out well for Bran, and Bran is going to be a strong enough greenseer that he is able to fight against it. So I think we have had too many of these instances of like seeing how that taboo gets violated, and knowing Brynden Rivers, his abilities, and what he is willing to do. I think there's a very good chance that all of those things culminate in an attempt by Brynden to take over Bran as some means of, turning him into a weapon almost. Maybe because he thinks that Bloodraven would have the better judgment, maybe because Bran isn't listening, whatever. But I think there is a good chance that he tries, and I think that there is an even better chance that Bran whoops his ass, and maybe that's how Brynden actually dies. And honestly, if I've been stuck growing into a tree for the last like 60, 70 years, I might be a little over it too. So yeah, anyway, okay, goodbye.